Hey listeners, discover Mixed Up Clothing, a unique children's wear brand that celebrates the beauty of cultures through vibrant, everyday style. Founded by Sonia Smith Kong, a critical care nurse turned fashion designer and community advocate, Mixed Up Clothing is all about celebrating the beauty of cultures, stories, and traditions that make us who we are. Mixed Up Clothing brings the world to life through colorful, everyday style. From Asian designs to vibrant Caribbean prints, rich textiles of Africa, and trims from everywhere in between, their fashion acts as a mirror, helping every child see themselves in the world around them, reflected with pride. We want everyone to know about this incredible brand. Check them out at mixedupclothing.com and at Mixed Up Clothing on social media channels.
People think or might stereotype immigrants as criminals or breaking the law when you have an expired visa or whatever. But in the meantime, ICE right now is picking up people at immigration court. Immigration court is doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Right? And what people don't understand is even if the result of a court order is removal, it's not removal that day.
Yeah.
You have to leave by a certain date. So you get to go home and wrap up your affairs and do whatever in order to meet that removal deadline. It's people being picked up on fields. Literally, that's how food gets on our table.
Yeah.
It's people being picked up at Home Depot, where they're literally like building our housing, doing jobs for a lot less pay than they deserve because they're literally just trying to feed their families. And the trillions of dollars that they contribute via ITIN numbers to our tax system. Yeah. People don't understand like the massive foundation that immigrants provide to this country.
Welcome
to Season 2, Episode 19 of the Multiracialverse Podcast. I am your host, Antonio Fernandez. On this podcast, we explore the intersections of identity, culture, and creative expression through the lived experience of those navigating multiracial, multicultural, and LGBTQIA+ realities. This month, in celebration of Pride, we're spotlighting voices that embody authenticity, resilience, and the power of living out loud. Today's guest is Dulce Vasquez, a queer Mexican-born changemaker whose journey from undocumented child to political candidate and community advocate is nothing short of extraordinary. Dulce's story is one of courage, complexity, and clarity. From arriving in the United States alone at age 7 to navigating the challenges of assimilation, identity, and belonging, she's lived at the intersection of multiple marginalized identities and turned those experiences into fuel for activism and public service. In this episode, Dulce opens up about her path to embracing her bisexual identity, the cultural and familial dynamics that shaped her, and the power of coming out later in life. She shares how her lived experience as an immigrant, a woman of color, and a member of the LGBTQIA+ community informs her advocacy for housing, education, and mental health, and why representation matters now more than ever. Whether she's running for office, mentoring young activists, or simply showing up as her full self, Dulce reminds us that identity is not a limitation, it's a source of strength. Her story is a powerful reminder that pride is not just a celebration, but a call to action. So settle in and join us for a conversation that's as inspiring as it is necessary. And this is the Multiracialverse Podcast. Dulce, welcome to the Multiracialverse. How are you doing today?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. I'm super excited to learn more about you, hear about your fascinating story, and talk also about what you're doing right now and what lies ahead in the future. So I do it with everyone, and people have joked it's like a superhero origin story, but share your origin story, your parents, and just start. Yeah, let's just start there, and then we'll work from there.
Okay. Let's see. I was born in Mexico in a town on the Gulf of Mexico called Tampico. My mom was a teenager when she had me. Around age 3, she left to come to the States following my dad, who after I think 3 attempts, getting caught up and sent back, finally made it. He was a farm worker in Florida, first in tomatoes, I believe, and then in dairy, which was more stable. It's seasonal. My mom, when she finally came and was working all sorts of jobs, dishwasher. Back in the day, you didn't have all of these hoops to work at an airport. She did airport meals, packaged the airport meals, and then she finally found work as a nanny. So it was like more stable.
And how did she come? Did she come through which path?
Expired or visa, and then
with the visa. Oh, okay, yeah. With you, correct? Did you have siblings also, or no?
No. So I came later.
Oh, you did. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I came also on a student visa.
Okay.
I flew by myself.
Oh, wow. Back when that was a lot more common too, just like the airports were a lot less strict with it. So what was your dad's impetus for coming? Did he have family or someone up here that said, hey, you got to get up here, or?
He was the first one. So,
okay.
Both my parents are educated. They have their bachelor's degrees, or licenciaturas, you would call in Mexico. My dad had his in agriculture and my mom in English.
Right on.
Literature.
Yeah.
And my dad, he was a runner, like a track athlete.
Yeah.
And then he got offered a position to be a researcher, and actually, they were going to pay for his graduate school. And then he saw how much money they were making, and it was pennies. Right?
Yeah.
Not much better than we treat our researchers now.
Yeah.
Very, very little money. And he's like, I can't. He's the oldest of all of his siblings, right? So there's also a lot of that responsibility. And he's like, I'm gonna go.
And were your parents both from the same town? Is it very big, or was it very big at the time?
So yes and no. He was born in a smaller town, but then they met when his family moved to the bigger city.
Okay.
So his family was sort of everywhere. My mom was always from the city. And the city is I don't know what the population would have been at that time, but it's a big oil city. So it's very industrialized.
Okay.
There's probably 1 million people now in the region, right?
Yeah.
The region.
I don't know much about that area in the Gulf there, so I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
So you said your mom had an English degree. Was she speaking fluent English at the time when she came up?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
She was an English teacher in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Fluent. It has a heavy accent.
Sure.
And even as a teacher, she's almost 60 years old now. She still struggles to conjugate or to find the right words. Even 40 years living here.
Yeah, for sure. My dad was like that. He was in his 90s and he still had somewhat of an accent after living here for 60 years. So you come up at what age and into Florida?
7 years old, into Miami International Airport.
Wow. Do you remember that trip?
I do remember that trip for a couple reasons. One was my grandfather took me up by bus. It's like an overnight bus to Mexico City.
Oh, wow.
Drops me off and then obviously leaves. No cell phones.
Yes.
Early 90s, right? So I get on this plane. The plane turns around halfway through, goes back to Mexico City. And here I am, 7 years old, no money, by myself, can't tell anyone, right?
Yeah. Wow.
And I remember at some point, a woman and her husband who were English speakers, asked me if I was by myself. And I just at 7, what do you do? Do you say yes? But they were like, do you want a hot dog? And they bought food at the airport because I was just by myself.
Yeah.
And then I also remember it because once I landed, my mom was beside herself, right? Because she didn't know what was happening. I was great.
Gosh.
Back on the plane, and, et cetera. But then back then it was INS. Naturalization Services. they call her over the loudspeaker at Miami International, like, come to this office. And
Yeah.
so she goes, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like happy as a clam. And they're like, excuse me, like, she's here on a student visa. She says she's moving here, that she's going to go to school here.
You were like already a young adult. Yeah.
I'm going to go to Disney World, and I'm going to go to school. I'm going to make friends. My mom was mortified. She's like, no, she's here for 2 weeks, and then she's going home.
The kids in their filters, right? You know. So then, where was your family living then in Florida at the time?
Outside of Fort Lauderdale, just of Miami. All of that land was farmland back in the day. It's now fully developed. There are freeways, there's schools. In the late 90s, they sold off a lot of that land to develop these gated communities. And my dad, out of necessity, went from dairy farm worker to construction worker.
Yeah. And what kind of life did they start building? Were they moving for work, or did your parents think about establishing your family in that area at the time?
So when it was a dairy farm, my dad was living in like subsidized housing that the dairy farm owners owned, right? So they had, sort of like barrack style for like single men, and then they had these like very small 1,000 square foot homes for like the families.
Yeah.
We lived in one of those, and when they sold the farmland, they were able to buy this home.
Oh, wow.
For $45,000.
Wow, that's awesome. And so they stayed for how long there?
They're still there.
Oh, they are?
They're
wow. That is amazing.
They're still in the same house.
That's amazing. And so tell us about your childhood. You were definitely an outgoing child. It sounds like almost a world traveler at 7 years old, right?
I know. Well,
And were you an only child, by the way?
No. My brother came shortly after I arrived. So actually, a year after I arrived, my brother was born.
Oh, okay.
So childhood, I remember the first day of school. I was going into second grade, and I remember my mom dropped me off and just like crying in her lap because I didn't speak any English.
Yeah.
I'm going into this school. I don't know anybody. I can't understand anything. And the teacher, who is Puerto Rican, refused to speak Spanish to any of the kids because, and I get this now, right? At the time, pretty horrendous. In hindsight, there were kids in that. I was in English as a second language classes. Yeah. So there were kids from Israel and Pakistan and, Kuwait and all Haitian, Jamaican, all kinds of places. And she didn't speak any of those languages. And she's like, why would I give you the advantage when like I can't communicate with the rest of the kids and give them the same advantage? So I get it, but it was
I was going to ask
7-year-old.
I was going to ask demographically what was it like, but it sounds like it was pretty ethnically mixed.
In English as a second language classes, yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, but in the overall general sense, was that in like the English as a second language classes? Was that where you were for most of the day, or was that?
It was a full.
It was full. Okay, and then the larger school was demographically
actually black and white.
Oh wow!
Then, Fort Lauderdale was like 33% black.
Okay.
So this was before a lot of the Latinos moved out of Miami and up into Broward County.
Okay. And what did your childhood friends group look like? And, I know this will have something also to do with, the people that your parents befriended. I'm interested to understand that.
My best friends, my like core group, a Brazilian, an Argentinian, and a Colombian.
And I guess the Brazilian individual probably spoke Portuguese.
I mean, by that point, I came into second grade.
Yeah.
Most of them had been in this program since kindergarten.
Yeah.
They were pretty fluent in English by that point. So I was able to communicate with the Colombian and the Brazilian. My English, kids are such sponges.
Yeah.
I would say that by the, 6 months in, I was already chatting it up. I would go and I would watch cartoons in English and just picked it up super quickly.
And was there ever a feeling that young of feeling different due to the fact that you were an immigrant in the U.S. in this area, or was there mixed enough to where it didn't feel like you were an outsider?
Yes and no. Within my bubble, right?
Yeah,
30 students. There was one ESL class for every grade. So within my bubble of students, I definitely felt like I belonged. But then we would go into the cafeteria where it's mostly white and black students, and we're the ones that stand out. We're the ones who have the classroom in the portables, right?
Yeah.
And then coming home, I was in a very sort of poverty-stricken white neighborhood.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So, teeth missing, drug paraphernalia on the ground, sort of Confederate flag flying, white neighborhood.
Yeah.
So coming home and trying to befriend the sort of blonde, white, blue-eyed kids at home was definitely, I think, a lot more. I don't want to say isolating because I got to the point where I made friends, but definitely there was an otherness.
Yeah. That sounds tough. And was, similar, we kind of bounce back and forth just because of the current atmosphere of our society. But did it feel like that? Do you remember it feeling like it does right now, where there was this kind of like anti-brown sentiment? And then I guess along with that too is, were there a lot of other people from Mexico in Florida? Because you usually don't hear. Usually, a lot of times the individuals from Mexico migrate to California or to the other side, where So yeah,
definitely not a lot of Mexicans at the time. They're sort of by community. You get word of mouth type thing. So we would go down to Homestead, right, and we would hear about birria, being made down in Homestead, or we would hear about the new, Mexican place that was making pozole, right? But it's like, sort of a drive to get to.
Yeah.
And you start sort of picking up on these things, but definitely, I think not in the early 90s, a very, very small population that has definitely grown.
Yeah. And were your parents, were they into the idea of not sticking out too much? Like, were they thinking assimilation when they came over with you? Like, as much as that could happen?
So no, I think in hindsight, they're in their 60s, 50s, early 60s. And my dad is still sort of like doesn't speak English very well. Like, we joked about this. So two things. One, in our neighborhood, right, we're clearly the Latino family.
Yeah.
We didn't want to stick out because we knew that the local police department had a history of being very racist. And we had neighbors call the police on us for being too loud or being too whatever. So we were always just trying to be very under the radar.
Yeah.
But my dad, funnily enough, we're all now American citizens, and we have the privilege now of being American citizens, but he still works in construction and he still drives a white van, and there is a lot of shit happening right now. So
totally.
He goes to get food last week and he sees ICE agents walk into the restaurant that he's at. And he's like, I tried to make myself look very suspicious. And he's like, and then I walk outside and they blocked his van entrance, his driver door. They parked so close to him that he couldn't open the door.
Yeah.
So he's just like, I just went in through the passenger side, drove off and smirked at them. And I was like, that's the kind of energy we need.
Yeah, totally. It's I love that. That's awesome. And so do you feel that growing up, your parents, do you feel like now looking back that you were shielded from a lot of that type of stuff by your parents, or were they, because we'll talk about and we'll move towards where you're at in your political career, but were they vocal about how they felt about this environment?
I was not shielded.
Okay.
And, maybe a year or two after I arrived, my great grandmother died. And I was like, okay, we're gonna go to the funeral, right? Like now I'm old enough to go to the funeral. And my mom broke to me that I was undocumented, that if I left, I could never come back. And, sometimes I think about a lot of stories of kids who grew up not knowing that they were undocumented. So that was always, it was great to understand that.
Yeah.
Because when it came to like school field trips and stuff, like she would let me go to Orlando, but she wouldn't let me go to like, the Washington, D.C. trip.
Yeah.
Right. And being able to understand why versus like a flat no. I'm sort of like the sort of justice sensitive person. It's like, I need to know.
Sure.
Why.
Yeah.
So I think that was really helpful for me. So they didn't shield me. We had a lot of friends who were undocumented, and then my grandfather lived with us for a while and his visa had expired. Understanding the dangers that come with having a broken taillight, not signaling when you turn, rolling through a stop sign, right? The little things that can get you deported.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that, and condolences about your grandmother. It's something that you just enlightened me, where, one of the things we try to do with the podcast is share things that enlighten the viewer to possibly a stereotypical view of, immigrants' life or multiracial people or other. And I don't think I've ever thought about the idea of a child having to like being either shielded and not know that they're undocumented, and like that's not even on their radar until maybe they're teenager or older, but being told
students that are trying to apply to college, and they're like, where's my birth certificate, or where's my social security number?
Yeah, wow. So let's just, I want to ask you a question for present day with what's going on. Is what sort of things would you tell the audience about being an immigrant to humanize that experience so that people understand, wait a second, like these individuals are just, they're just like us. They're trying to raise their families and work and have a better life. And share some wisdom there looking back now and with everything that's going on.
I mean, I can talk about myself.
Sure.
In that, in literally half a generation, I went from the daughter of two hardworking manual laborers to getting a full scholarship at Northwestern University, getting a master's degree in policy at UCLA, the #1 public school in the country, and someone who is an activist and has run for office. And I hope I've contributed to my neighborhood, to my society, to adding to the voices resisting this administration. Yeah. So that's my experience. I think delving into what's happening right now, I don't want to dig too much into it because I will literally cry. It's that people think or might stereotype immigrants as criminals or breaking the law when you have an expired visa or whatever. But in the meantime, ICE right now is picking up people at immigration court. Immigration court is doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Right? And what people don't understand is even if the result of a court order is removal, it's not removal that day.
Yeah.
You have to leave by a certain date. So you get to go home and wrap up your affairs and do whatever in order to meet that removal deadline. It's people being picked up on fields. Literally, that's how food gets on our table.
Yeah.
It's people being picked up at Home Depot, where they're literally like building our housing, doing jobs for a lot less pay than they deserve because they're literally just trying to feed their families. And the trillions of dollars that they contribute via ITIN numbers to our tax system, people don't understand like the massive foundation that immigrants provide to this country.
Yeah, it's huge. Thank you so much for sharing that. And so what are your thoughts on the idea of this is a little bit, I don't think it's hypothetical as much as like theoretical, maybe like the idea of borders. What do you think about the borders that humans have put around everything?
It's funny because I think a lot about my current job. I work for Arizona State University.
Yes.
I live in Los Angeles and I do a lot of expansion work in LA and in California broadly. And the biggest hurdle that I have in that work is people hear Arizona and they're like, why are you in California? Mm-hmm. And it's the same way that I think about sort of global relations, global movement, sort of like the globalized economy, right? That like these systems, we created them.
Yeah.
Right? We created them by not having adequate policies, by having a backlog, by having, a system where you're paid to grow agriculture that is completely tax subsidized in order to keep your Iowa farm thriving. We got rid of the Bracero program, but if we had the Bracero program again, all of these people would be coming and going in a seasonal manner following the work.
Yeah.
Right? If we didn't consume all of the narcotics that we consume, we would not have a drug issue because it's a supply system.
Yes. Yeah.
So, the world exists because we created it that way. But, even in a place like the European Union, which is roughly physically the size of the United States, we think about freedom of movement within the EU, and it's not as prevalent as one would think. Right? Like you don't have a massive exodus of Spaniards going to London.
Yeah.
People grow roots where they are comfortable, where they feel at home, where they are allowed to grow and thrive. Mm-hmm. And those are the kinds of societies that we need to create.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. That was beautiful. And kind of stepping back into young Dulce, and where did you start this? Did you know that you wanted to do politics from early on, activism, things like that? Or did you have something else in mind? And with that, I'm going to make just the assumption that your parents said education, like that was something that was super important to them. So yeah, share on those things.
So it was very important to them. It was very important to my grandfather. Even when I was living in Mexico with my grandparents from ages like 3 to 7, or 0 to 7, but really like when my mom left, 3 to 7.
Yeah.
So my grandfather's like, that's your only job, right? And my dad, when I moved to Florida, he would never buy me anything unless it was school related. So like August was my favorite time because I could go to Office Depot and get anything I wanted from Office Depot. For it, no question. I don't think they ever quite put it that way. My grandfather was always like, just education. By the time I moved to Florida, like I was very self-motivated, self-driven. I think part of it was my own internal way of seeking validation and love.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And my parents are, a lot of immigrant parents, I think, have a hard time showing emotion. And I think for me, getting straight A's, getting awards was my grasp at trying to gain their affection or validation or whatever it is.
Sure.
And ultimately, like, that's a pretty good sort of habit or...
Yeah. You could get it. Yeah, definitely.
It led me to a great place. I would say that I got my citizenship at 14. And at 14, I wanted to be the model American. What that meant, but I was just like, how do I validate this naturalization, right? How do I earn my U.S. passport? And for me, it was, Americans exercise their right to vote. And I couldn't vote. I was 14, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
But shortly thereafter, I joined my first political campaign. Well, I guess first I joined the debate team because my mom said, you want to go argue with someone else. So she was like, you should sign up for the debate team. So I signed up for the debate team and then shortly met a bunch of really stellar classmates and joined the Howard Dean campaign back in the day.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And then that led me to like volunteering for Rock the Vote, registering people to vote. And that's something that I also did in college when I worked for the Illinois Coalition for Refugee and Immigrant Rights. We also did sort of the New American initiative where we would sign people up, like help fill out their paperwork for naturalization and then go to naturalization ceremonies, register them to vote. So that's something that I just have always valued as like being very American.
Yeah, yeah. And I was going to ask because somebody might hear that and their idea of being very American is you want to be as like white American as you can be, right? And was there any of like, I need to tone down my, Latinness or no?
There is. And that's something that I don't think was conscious.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was sort of the atmosphere where once I got out of ESL classes, I was in a lot of advanced and gifted classes with a lot of white kids. And the assimilation was not about being assimilated into white America or white culture. It was just about fitting in with my classmates, right?
Yeah.
You're wearing the same, Steve Madden, white sneakers, and the same, Nautica and Tommy Hilfiger, and, you're getting the butterfly clips and you speak with a certain tonality.
Yeah.
Right? And for me, I can't get away from my name. But when I was a kid, I accepted the pronunciation that white Americans could say of my name. So I went by Dulce because that was the easiest for Americans to pronounce. Dulce.
Yeah.
And that took, till I was probably in college. I went to like Dulce. And then finally in Los Angeles was where I came to shed a lot of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't, and I didn't do it because of shame or fear. It was literally about fitting in.
Yeah, yeah,
and
totally.
As you grow as an adult and as you're in a, Los Angeles is such a place where, I joke that this is where I came to find my Mexicanness again, right? Because there are just so many of us.
Yeah.
You are allowed to feel at home being yourself.
So you're saying that at some point in that journey, there were probably instances or events where you were tiptoeing in between that line of where you might have been hanging around with more white people or white friends, but you were too Mexican for those white friends. But when you were with other Latinas, then maybe they were like, wait a second, you're like a white girl now, Did you run into that?
So I have to say, like, there were not a lot. I can't really think of another Latina in like my advanced classes.
Yeah.
But it was more of like my cousins, right? That my cousins.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Or, you think you're so smart, or, why are you wearing that? Right? When my cousin is from Texas.
And did once you got your citizenship and did your parents have theirs too at the same time or before?
My mom had a residency by then.
Okay.
So she could travel.
Okay, I was going to say that allowed you to travel. Did you actually go back to Tampico?
Literally the month after, like maybe 2 weeks later. Like,
oh, really?
I didn't even have a passport yet, but I had gotten a stamp on my Mexican passport, and my dad's like, let's go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're going to talk about along your journey too. One of the things that we kind of emailed back and forth about was your sexual identity. And it sounds like it was of more recent times that you also started to identify as bisexual. But in some of the things I've read about you, you were talking about like you have known for a long time. So tell us about the younger Dulce and how how that evolved.
I mean, I think a lot of these things are in hindsight.
Yeah, for sure.
In high school, my two best friends were gay. They're women, but lesbians. Yeah. And I knew that I wasn't that. And, you know, in the early 2000s, it was a very binary system.
Yeah, right? Yeah, totally.
Gay or you're straight. And being bi, particularly as a teenager or as a, you know, when you're in your 20s, has this very negative stigma of either, oh, you're just curious, or, oh, you just want attention, or, oh, you're like experimenting. You're on your way to like decisively one or the other.
Yeah.
Without the acceptance of bi, and obviously understanding it now, and part of the coming out process is that decision of, am I contributing to bi erasure? So thinking about that, but then going back and being like, I've had different experiences that I've enjoyed, and I can go back to being 6 years old.
Yeah.
Having a crush on a girl. And it wasn't just like, we're friends, right? Like, we like it, like, you're 6 and you know that you're attracted to a different gender. But there are also all of these layers, right?
Yeah.
Layers of Mexicanness, perfect daughter, Catholicism, you know, what's right, what's going to make people look at you as like an otherness, right? And the small comments that family members make that dig away at you, that you store in the back of your head, and you're like, okay, that's, you know, that's something that I can't do, or something that's not allowed, or something that won't be approved, I guess.
Yeah. So you're talking about things individuals would say in like slandering LGBTQ people, not specifically towards maybe some of your actions.
Yeah, correct. So I'm just saying in general, how, you know, perhaps the Latino community, and I think we battle it to this day.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for sure.
Particularly in DMs.
Yeah.
But how the community is treated as either less than or othered, or, you know, whatever it is, that after spending X amount of years trying to appease my parents, to all of a sudden have them be disappointed in me because I'm gay.
And did that happen when you came out? Did you come out to them first?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I came out to my best friend first, because that's my bestie.
Yeah.
And I came out to her before I came out to my husband, because obviously, like, I didn't want to leave my marriage. I just wanted to live more openly as myself.
Yeah.
So I think that was the hardest conversation to have. It was great because he's amazing, but
that's awesome.
Yeah, but it took me months of build up, talking to my therapist, talking to my best friend, sort of, how is this conversation going to go? Where do I want to have it? It's just like months of anxiety and build up. I think I'm privileged enough to have been able to come out knowing that I come out in a safe environment. Not for LGBT as a whole, but I think just for me personally, right? Where I got to the point where, like, I didn't care what my parents thought, right? I was so past, you know, what I would have thought as a teenager.
Yeah.
That I'm like, okay, like, this, take it or leave it.
Yeah. That's really brave. And so with that, what would you offer to an individual who is still, thinking about it in the closet, or whatever, whatever we want to use as the term for not having revealed their identity? What would you say to them about coming out as bi? Like, what words of wisdom could you give somebody to help them? Or if somebody's listening and they're like, oh, I can relate to that, what sort of things do you think an individual who might be in that space might need to hear?
That's really tough for me, because I'm in such a unique position where I'm older, I'm established. I have different relationships that I'm either nurturing or okay letting go of. I think for me, I was inspired by younger people to come out. I ran a campaign for city council and had a lot of Gen Z young people on my team. It was probably like 97% LGBT on my team.
Yeah.
And, I think my campaign manager should have known that, like, that's why they were all attracted to this campaign, that, like, I was secretly one of them too.
Sure.
But they inspired me, that they were living their life so authentically. And I was scared and not scared, not scared in the, like, I don't know. I think I was more scared of rejection from the actual LGBT community for having come out so late and in a heteronormative relationship, that I was, sort of like the imposter syndrome that we get as in the LGBT community. But I was also so tired of going to Pride and pretending that I was an ally and not actually a part of the community. Right? Like,
yeah, totally.
That dictates what you wear, right? As an ally versus a member. That dictates like how you act, or, I wanted to be me.
Yeah, or how you even create safe spaces for other people too.
Right. Yeah. Right. So I think anyone thinking about it or going through the process, like, it's so beautiful and calming to be able to say that out loud, right? And to have this experience, because the LGBTQ experience, like, everyone has their right time, and having come out at 36 or something, I can say that that's true. Like, everyone has the right time for them. But the joy that I have found since then in being an open part of this community is marvelous.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. So in what way did this impact, did it impact your self-esteem? Because I was thinking about that when I was reading over the questions and thinking about, like, prior to coming out, you couldn't be yourself. You couldn't be this authentic self that you are, underneath this costume or whatever that was hiding who you really are. How has that changed, even though knowing that the coming out process is not just a one and done? It's not like you tell one person. It's much more complicated. And probably since you have a much larger expanded group of established friends, family, and other things. But how's that changed the way that you maybe even think about the world now that you are openly accepting of being bi?
So I think there are different things. I think it's true about the constantly having to come out to people, because I think people either forget or don't know that I'm part of the community. So when they talk about trans rights, when they talk about LGBT or whatever, if they say something, I'm going to stand up and be like, well, I have this opinion, and I have this opinion because I'm part of the community, right? I'm staunchly defensive of it. You said something else about sort of broadly, and this is something that I thought about when I came out, because as someone who's also an immigrant, right? So you're part of now, I have chosen now to put myself into another marginalized group. By choice. I mean, not, yes, by choice. I was born this way, but like, but, I married a white man.
Yeah.
And when we got married, the first thing I did was put a copy of my marriage license into my passport. Because if I ever got stopped or whatever, I didn't change my name. So I'm just needed proof that, like, I'm married to, like, almost like a protector, right?
Yeah.
And choosing to put myself in the LGBT space, I think about that I've, like, placed myself into this category, whether governments or whatever, particularly in this environment, are going to pick this up through social media, or if I'm traveling to a country where this is illegal, or they're persecuting people, no matter if I'm a citizen of that country or not, if I'm just traveling. And now I think about that a lot. And I think about that as, sort of our country is coming down on LGBT rights. And that really almost incites me more to do more, right?
Yeah,
Not that I should be a member in order to fight.
yeah.
I was doing it way before I came out. But, this is when people start thinking about the LGBT community, I want them to think about my rights too, that I am part of this community. And if something happens to the LGBTQ plus community, I am a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that and bringing that to the surface, because that's super important. And I think that and I think that representation is important too. Say, for instance, of you being part of that community and people being able to see you as a political leader or something else is like super important too. Did you have any individuals you looked up to growing up that you remember outside of your parents per se, whether it was for helping you figure out how to do the school thing? Did your parents help you figure out the citizenship thing, or did you figure out all of that on your own? Or
the citizenship thing, my parents figured out.
Okay.
It's a little bit more complicated. I mean, for them, it was always like, that was first. My dad had come in like when they were giving out work permits to farm workers, right? Like,
oh, okay, yeah,
you showed up and they gave you a work permit, but then from there you had to stay a while and then apply for residency, and then it's 5 years, and you can apply for citizenship, and then you wait. So throughout that process, like, they were always very on it.
Yeah.
When my dad got citizenship, he's actually my stepdad, but I've known him since my mom has known him since before I was born.
Yeah.
He adopted me.
Wow.
So then we had to go through the adoption process.
Wow.
So I have his last name, and that was taken care of by my parents, thank God. The university thing, I was completely on my own. It was, I think about, again, like right place, right time, where I had tested into all of these advanced classes, and all of my friends were taking the PSAT, and I'm like, what's a PSAT? And then I take it, and then all of a sudden I'm getting mailers for university to my home. And I was on the debate team. We were very competitive and got to go to a lot of universities for tournaments and decide, where would I want to go? And then how am I going to afford this? And all of those things I figured out on my own. I don't think my parents understood the sort of the bigness, magnanimous change that was going to happen. I got into Northwestern early. I came home from work. I was working at a restaurant, and I opened my email at like 1 a.m. and got accepted. And I jumped on my parents' bed at 1 a.m. and they're like, what's wrong? And I was like, I got into Northwestern. They're like, great. Can you go back to bed now? Just sort of like, and I feel like a lot of immigrants go through this, right? We're like, your parents don't understand sort of what a big deal this is. And sometimes I have work things that happen, and they're like, oh, that's great, mija. But it's like, you don't get that this is such a big deal.
Yeah. What values did you get from, maybe one from your dad or stepdad, and one from your mom?
Oh my God, Dad, work hard.
Yeah.
This man works 14, 16-hour days, no stopping. And he's very humble. Like, saves a lot, right? I don't think has ever bought himself anything. My mom's the one that buys him all his clothes and shoes and whatnot. Like, doesn't buy himself anything.
Yeah.
And I think from my mom, she has this heart of gold where literally, like, one of our family friends was a woman she found on a park bench crying.
Aww.
She was a nanny, and she got fired, or she got let go. And she was supposed to be here for another like 3 months, and it was like a live-in nanny.
Yeah.
I had no place to go, so my mother like literally took her in.
Wow.
And then we were family friend. I think she's still alive. She's back in Peru, retired. But my mother would literally take her shirt off of her back at the cost of her own like bankruptcy, or would give everything to help other people.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's so cool. Have you had conversations with your parents about their aspirations when they were younger? Is that something that you ever talked to them about as an adult, or, they did go to school but they ended up immigrating and having to, figure it out just to stay here,
Yeah. I mean, I've heard a couple of things, and I've never outright sort of asked them.
Yeah.
Like, I know my dad wanted to be a researcher, wanted to be an academic, was also a stellar runner. When he was younger. And my mom was a teacher when she left, wanted to always be a teacher. I think she would have made a phenomenal college professor when she was younger, before she got pregnant with me. So it's nothing to do with immigration, but wanted to go to medical school, gave up on medical school because she had a baby. And then she's always told me my grandfather was a general manager for a Chrysler dealership back in Mexico. And my grandmother was super anxious, had a lot of social and just regular anxiety.
Yeah.
My grandfather would take my mom, who was his oldest, parties that ship through.
Yeah.
He would give me money to get my hair done, and I would go to all these parties and talk to everyone. She would have been sort of like the work that I do now in public affairs, and she would have been obsessed.
Yeah. She could be
knocking on doors for my kids.
That's awesome. That's so cool. So you have come out to your parents? And what was that like, especially culturally, the idea of this sexual identity as being bisexual? Can you share a little bit about that?
I have to be perfectly honest. We didn't talk about it. It was, this is how I identify.
Yeah.
I'm still going to be in my marriage. And they're not very, I think they would say that oh, this is your business. Right?
Yeah.
Don't want to ask.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I decided that I was going to do this with her. I mean, I obviously didn't need their approval, but I also just did not care too much about their reaction. We were also going through a rough patch on some other things. So this just came as a cherry on top of a lot of other stuff that was happening in our lives at that time. So yeah, that's thank you for sharing that. That's, I couldn't imagine. And that culture, my dad, he was definitely an older father. Yeah. They don't, it's they don't ask, don't tell, kind of, So let's talk about your aspirations for politics. You've ran before, and you're running right now, right? No.
You're not running right now. Okay.
Okay. So I ran in 2022 for Los Angeles City Council, and I ran 24 for California State Assembly.
And what was the impetus for those two runs for you?
How much time do we still have?
On all the other stuff, I actually feel like we're just at the tip of the iceberg. I feel like we've only talked to, So
for the city council run, long story short, I was in my last semester of grad school in public policy when the pandemic started. And we took that last 3 months, our professor changed the curriculum to basically analyze everything that the government was doing at the municipal, state, federal level in response to COVID. And then we were studying what the business community was doing, what philanthropy was doing, what nonprofit groups were doing in order to respond and how they were working together. So I'm literally going through all of this, understanding the immigrant experience, right? Understanding that my dad works in construction and all the construction jobs were paused, so he's not making any money. My mom, who cleans houses, was no longer allowed to go into anyone's house. So if you don't work, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Understanding that that's a similar experience for a lot of people in this community. And then on the reverse, the people who were actually working, the grocery store clerks, the shelvers, the people in nurses in hospitals, administrative staff, etc., they're all being exposed to this. A lot of them in the Latino community.
Yeah.
Coming home to multi-generational households where they have their kids and their grandparents or whatever. And just there's this massive frustration. You remember the COVID checks that they sent out? Immigrants, fine. No immigrants, but they weren't giving them to mixed status families.
Oh, wow.
And I
Wow.
remember, when my brother was born here, we were on food stamps, but I also ate the Cheerios on the WIC,
Yeah.
platform,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
when you keep $600 away from a multi-status family, the American kids are not eating,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Wow. Wow.
So I just like this growing frustration, this growing resentment. And then the George Floyd protests start, and I'm just beside myself. And a friend of a friend was like, "You should run for office." And I'm like, "No, I don't have the money. I don't have any money. Like, I can't leave my job." All these different things. And he's like, no, no, no. He explained the matching fund system that the city of Los Angeles has, where you raise $1, they give you 6.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Really generous program.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And I was like, okay, let's do it. And it was just like this productive rage that I had. And once I committed to it, I was like, all right, well, now I have to do it 200% because this is my name. This is my career. This is my life that's on display.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. I'm not going to fizzle out. I'm going to give it my all. And sure enough, that's what we did. We lost, but it was just people, it was a great campaign. People were delighted. People tried to replicate it. People, took notes on what it is that we were doing. We were being creative and utilizing TikTok, which was new to the political landscape in those years, using different types of platforms to reach people.
And so then you ran again how much later on?
I ran again. Technically, it was 2 years, but I launched a campaign a year
It takes some time.
Yeah, well, just the way that the cycles go.
And what was pushing you towards this new position?
So, they say that you almost never win your first campaign. But this new position for the state assembly, it was more in line with the policy priorities that I have on LGBT rights, education, housing, right?
Yeah.
City council has nothing to do with the education system here in Los Angeles, but, at the state level, you manage literally all the funding in K through universities, or even before kindergarten, like TK.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is a much better fit for me, in terms of issues. It's a much better fit for me, sort of, in terms of my demeanor. City council was having protesters showing up every day, yelling all sorts of obscenities to members. And that stuff to me, like, I was a commissioner, and even at commission appointments to a lower level, you'd get hecklers in the crowd, and that stuff cuts really deep, right? When they're saying all sorts of obscenities. And I'm like, I don't think my personality can handle that at every meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. In Sacramento, like, you still have decorum.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think what really, the incumbent called me and said, would you consider running to replace me? Which I thought was a great vote of confidence. And then 2, the area for which I was previously running was the same area of this district. So I'm like, people just got all my mailers. They know my name. I have high name recognition. We have all of the ground game scoped out. We've made these relationships with businesses in the area. This, I'm already have a leg up.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can build on that. And politics in Los Angeles is hard. It did not work out that way, but I'm glad that I did it. Because now I'm like, okay, that is done. And now I can focus on other ways that I can impact my community.
And what are you doing in those other ways?
Yeah. Lots of different things. A lot of it is advocacy. So I'm going up with organizations, particularly around housing and building more housing in Los Angeles, doing a lot on LGBT rights. I'm on a couple of boards here and probably joining some others around mental health, just things that I care about in my free time. I'm on a couple of different committees around, like, sort of a women's group that I'm a member of. And then trying to do a lot of advocacy through running. I've picked up endurance running, and that is such a community that wants to help, loves to help. About a month ago, we did a 50-kilometer relay race from Altadena to the Palisades, which were the 2 places that were deeply impacted by the January fires. And just coming together to be able to help as best I can. It can be small things like We're doing a beach cleanup tomorrow to, the big Altadena to Pasadena race. Yesterday, we had a running event that I attended for Juneteenth, and just being in community.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to do ultra. Yeah, it looks like something that, it's like that next level when you run. You're always you're always running against yourself, That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for all your activism too. I feel like you probably will end up getting back into the arena at some point. So
we'll see. In the meantime, I'm helping other people get elected too. One thing that I discovered during the Harris campaign is sort of honing in that knack of leveraging social media. So I did a lot of content creation during the Harris campaign that afforded me just like tremendous opportunities that I'm hoping I can continue to replicate, because I got to go to DNC. I, traveled to Arizona and met all of these phenomenal sort of spokespeople for the campaign, celebrities, and it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you for doing that. I was part of the multiracial Americans, and we got to take part in a few things. Most of it was all virtual, but yeah, it was frustrating, right? The end was frustrating more than anything. One thing that came up a little bit is that it sounds like you're doing some work, activism or work in mental health. How do you take care of your mental health? And probably from, in the Mexican culture, therapists and all that stuff. You don't hear a lot of the old school Mexican families talking about that. But where did your journey start there? Because I love people sharing about mental health to let people know that it's okay,
I mean, the journey's been long, and I think definitely something that my parents still don't quite comprehend. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that I'm breaking cycles, right? And I'm very open about it on social media. So hopefully helping others break those cycles too, sort of destigmatizing therapy, destigmatizing, medication, right? Of when you feel like you need help. And help can come in many different ways. I would say I started seeing a therapist, God, I can't even remember, probably 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, I think everything that I've learned about myself through therapy was not the initial reason why I went to therapy. I went to therapy because in my previous job, I was verbally and emotionally abused, and I felt really powerless in that situation. And I felt that there was something wrong with me, that I had attracted that type of behavior. It was something I did that let myself be such a victim in that scenario.
Sure.
Because I stayed in it for so long, also felt like a victim. And I went to therapy because I'm I never want to be in this position again. So what is it that I can do, right, to speak up, say no? And one interaction I had with a colleague, shortly thereafter, where it had similarities, where I was very, at the first sign, I was no, you cannot talk to me this way.
Yeah.
So proud of myself. I'm oh, that was so worth it. And then obviously, then came everything else, right? And I'm very open that I struggle with ADHD, have been diagnosed with CPTSD. And I love having been diagnosed because I was struggling with the effects of those. They're not illnesses, right? They're just dealing with.
Yeah.
But I had been struggling with the symptoms of them for so long, thinking that I was just deficient.
Yeah.
So being able to understand how my brain works and doing the things that make it work better, make it, through medication, through behavioral changes, sort of seeing changes, right? Where I can't be in the office every day, but I also can't be at home every day. I, make myself go walk the dog every day because I want to be a responsible dog owner, but also even if it's raining outside, I need the fresh air, I need the water in my face, I need the sunlight. When I have a week with a lot of social interaction, I need a day where I don't talk to anyone, right?
I hear you.
A battery that operates really, really great when it operates, but when it's depleted, I can't function.
Yeah.
And I thought these were just deficits and faults versus understanding that no, this is not this. You need that rest, right? You need to recharge, and my body will just tell me to do it. And now I don't have to feel guilty. I think there's just such guilt around, being dead on the couch, right?
Yeah. Well, also it's cultural too. You probably,
I have to clean something, or I have to go be productive or do something instead of rotting on the couch. And it's sometimes I just need to rot on the couch and scroll through Instagram.
Totally. Thank you for sharing all that. I too suffer from ADHD, and actually sitting here being engaged in this conversation is probably as still as I sit at any time during my day listening to people's stories. So I really appreciate your vulnerability and sharing that. Thank you so much. And people, if they need to, therapy has been amazing. I don't know. It's a good thing.
I resisted medication for so long. I was medication for so long. I was I don't need it. And then finally, I'm okay, I'm not doing well. I switched to it, and I'm so glad that I did.
I ask everyone, what's your recipe for world peace?
What is my recipe for world peace?
Because you're living right in the zone, in SoCal, in the greater LA area right now. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah. I am an optimist at heart, but this is a tough time to think about world peace with things not just happening in Los Angeles, but happening in Iran and in Gaza and in Israel and everywhere else that is struggling with human rights and, battles and of all sorts. But I always think in our Constitution, sort of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and the government that owes us the tools to achieve those things, right? You need an education in order to achieve those things. You need secure housing to achieve those things. You need to not live in fear in order to achieve those things. You need freedom of religion, freedom to love who you love. And we've already written the blueprint, but we haven't actualized it yet. And I think that we need better leaders, more empathetic leaders. I think that our system is also rigged to have usually the worst people rising to those positions, whether that's through nepotism, money, favoritism. I think money is a huge, huge issue in politics. Who has it, who contributes, whether it's PACs funded by billionaires that no candidate will ever be able to replicate. So we have the Constitution, we have it written out for us, and I think we need a better system of how we get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. The one that first came to mind when you were sharing that is, was there an American dream that you, either as a child, you mentioned Disneyland when you were going to go to Disneyland, was there an American dream your parents had talked to you about, or that you talk to them about now, that they were saying, we're going to chase this so-called American dream?
I think their hope for us is that we're happy and healthy, like any parent.
Yeah.
I think for me, those dreams weren't big enough. When I was a teenager or when I was younger, I would look at my parents who were manual laborers and just be like, and I think that they wanted this for me too. They're like, when you get a job in an office, right? Their big dream for me was to work in an office.
Yeah.
And, I'm almost 40 and I can't sit still. So
I hear you.
No, but, I just very simple things of go to school, get married, buy a house. And I have to tell you, I did all those things by the time I was 30. So then you have to think about like, well, what else am I here to do? Right? So I think that that's been a bigger struggle as I run for office, as I think about my contribution to the world, and I struggle with this now, right? Like, what is my purpose? Right? And I'm so jealous of my husband all the time, because literally he's been playing with dumpster trucks since he was since he was crawling.
Yeah.
And now he's an engineer and he builds these massive infrastructure projects. So he's literally like his whole life, like this is what he wants to do. And I sit here and I'm like, should I, work at a startup? Should I continue in this pathway in education? Should I start a business? Should I start a coffee shop? Should I start a fashion line? Right? And then I call myself, I'm like, well, Vera Wang didn't design her first dress till she was 40. And Oprah, I think, got her raised in 40s. And I'm just like, okay, I have time. I have the tools. I just need to fail fast. Right?
Yeah. Learn fast is what they're saying now, I think. Learn fast.
I think fail fast. Try it. If it doesn't work, move on. Right? Like I have time. Yeah. And there will never be a deficit of stuff to work on in this world.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? And what a story you have. I put this in the questions, and I think it's appropriate to, have you found what you would consider to be home, and what does that exactly mean to you?
I feel like Los Angeles is home. I've never lived anywhere longer. I've never felt more myself than in this city. I think that's a contribution of just the culture, the food, the neighbors, the neighborhoods. LA is gritty, LA is diverse. And I think we've seen in the last couple of weeks, LA is not going to tolerate this federal bullshit. Right? And I just love that about this community.
Yeah.
But I think this sounds so cheesy, and I've literally never said this before, but the reason I'm able to do the things that I do is because I have this phenomenal partner who makes me feel safe. And I think for an immigrant eldest daughter who's always used to doing everything by herself and doing everything for other people, to have someone that I can fall apart and I know is going to catch me, I wish that for everybody.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Dulce, for your time. I think it's safe. Feeling safe is so important. It's so underestimated too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. Where can people find you if you want to be found?
Please, I do want to be found. I am on Instagram and TikTok at Vasquez Dulce. And if you want to connect with me on a more professional level, I'm on LinkedIn /Dulce Vasquez.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time today. I know, like I said, we kind of the tip of the iceberg. I think that there's so much more, but we have more time. So thank you so much.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
This episode of the Multiracial Verse podcast is brought to you by Eviton Couture, a brand born from a powerful vision and a deep connection to heritage. Founded by Shinnecock brothers Jason Tech King and Wayon Moon Smith, Eviton represents resilience and pride. From handmade tie-dye to wellness-focused athletic wear, each piece is crafted with intention and positivity, smudged with sage for good vibes, and delivered to you with love. Join the Eviton family on their journey of empowerment and inspiration. Hit up Moon on Instagram at Eviton_KS. That is native spelled backwards _KS to view product and place an order. Eviton Couture. Feel the spirit of resilience in every stitch. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Huge shout out to my friend Johannes Skoda for mixing and creating the intro music, and DJ Kazam for the track.